Good morning, dear friends. It is so wonderful to see all of you in person, in 3 dimensions, after 4 years. Our immense gratitude to Prime Minister Kallas, the government and civil society of Estonia, and Annabelle Cruz for hosting our summit. We meet amidst extraordinary threats to democracy and open government. But today, as we approach our 12th anniversary of OGP, our partnership has the platform, the people, and proven reforms to help shape a better, brighter future. To realize this promise, over the last year, we co-created with all of you OGP's new vision and strategy. Today, I call on all of us to advance key actions to achieve that precious promise. So let me divide my call to action in 3 parts. First, why, what, and how. So first, why? Russia's attack on Ukraine and the rise of authoritarian leaders globally epitomizes the grave external threats to democracy, but equally troubling are the internal threats from plummeting citizen trust in government. In too many countries, citizens perceive their governments to be unresponsive or corrupt. Shockingly, in the World Values Survey covering 77 countries, get this, the majority of respondents want a strong leader who does not bother with democracy, elections, or parliament. Populist leaders have stoked this citizen distrust to rise to power and then attack democratic institutions. Today, an astonishing 70% of the world's population lives in countries that are non-democratic or where democracy is backsliding. While we find these same challenges in several OGP countries, we also find in our partnership and right here at this summit, here in this hall and in the overflow rooms, thousands, a thriving global community of thousands of courageous government reformers, civil society activists, advancing ambitious reforms that improve governance and renew democracy. This is not rhetoric, but reality. Because we have compelling evidence that hundreds of ambitious reforms you have co-created over the last decade have made governments significantly more transparent, participatory, and accountable. These reforms empower people to shape and oversee more open governments every day, not just only once when they cast their vote. This is democracy beyond the ballot box. But the reality is also that these reforms are too few to tackle our societal challenges. So, part 2, what should be our response and action? Today, we launch the Open Government Challenge, calling on all OGP members to scale up action and ambition on 10 vital policy reforms that tackle pressing societal challenges. Let me illustrate by grouping these in 3 clusters of reforms that we must scale up. First cluster, scale up reforms that credibly combat corruption. For this, let us seek inspiration from Ukraine. I invite all our Ukrainian colleagues here and in overflow rooms to please wave. You inspire us with your bravery today. Yes, please give them a round of applause. You inspire us with your bravery today. But you have also inspired us over the years with many award-winning reforms in open government that measurably reduced corruption, such as opening opaque contracts through Prozoro Dozoro, or launching the world's first beneficial ownership register. Amazingly, even amidst war, Ukraine is delivering its latest OGP action plan, integrating open contracting and beneficial ownership transparency in a new platform called DREAM to ensure accountability in post-war reconstruction that the Prime Minister talked about. Today, 40 OGP countries such as Nigeria, Slovakia, and the UK are advancing beneficial ownership transparency, and 70 OGP members are advancing open contracting, rapidly making these the new global norms. Let us similarly tackle political corruption, such as 20 OGP members, like Chile and Madrid, advancing lobbying transparency. So now, second cluster of reforms that we must scale up. Let us multiply reforms that empower people, including the marginalized, to access justice and shape policies that impact their lives, especially at the local level, such as Nandi County, Kenya's toll-free call center, which empowers remote rural residents to provide service delivery feedback for government action, or Estonia's citizen initiative platform, enabling people to crowdsource and vote on policy proposals and policies for parliament. I call on us to lift the voices of women and the marginalized, such as Bogota, Colombia's 50-50 route to gender parity, or Indonesia's platform covering, get this, 145 million welfare recipients, which vulnerable groups can verify and appeal to receive their benefits. For all this, we must protect civic space and media freedoms, which are our very foundation, but have come under pervasive attacks, including in OGP countries. Following the EndSARS protests against police brutality, Nigeria is hosting citizens' dialogues with the police and developing guidelines for peaceful protests. The Dominican Republic, you just heard from the president, is developing an ambitious strategy to strengthen civic space. Third cluster of reforms that we must scale up. Let us together tackle digital threats. Let us together tackle big emerging threats. Let us combat climate change by embedding transparency and participation in climate actions, such as Denmark's Climate Atlas disclosing climate projections to empower municipalities and people to plan adaptation, or citizens' assemblies in France and Scotland forging consensus on contentious climate policies. Let us together tackle digital threats, such as Canada fighting disinformation by strengthening transparency of online political campaigns, or the Netherlands tackling unintended harms from AI by improving the accountability of government algorithms. As you take up this open government challenge, I invite you to share your successes and lessons on the OGP platform so we can inspire one another and become a hub of the coolest, most impactful reforms inside or outside OGP. Now, part 3, how? As you ponder how, I'm going to grab a water. So how? To scale up these ambitious reforms, we must mobilize stronger leadership inside our partnership and broaden our champions outside our partnership. So first, stronger leadership within. I call on more OGP heads of states and ministers to visibly champion open government nationally and globally. Let us invite dynamic mayors and governors to apply today to join the exciting, expanding OGP local cohort, which is delivering real benefits in people's lives locally. Let us build strong thematic coalitions of leaders and partners, such as the Beneficial Ownership Leadership Group, in scaling up specific reforms. Let us grow our network of committed leaders by expanding our Open Government Leadership Collaborative. Simultaneously, we must broaden our champions beyond our OGP community. We must not be content inside our bubble. Let us mobilize ministries across the whole of government, such as Brazil and Finland developing open government strategies, or the Philippines prioritizing open government across its national development plan. Let us engage parliaments and judiciaries by advancing open state, as in Kenya, Morocco, North Macedonia, across much of the Americas. Let us strengthen global partnerships with key global platforms, such as the Summit for Democracy, hosted next by Korea, or UNCAC, hosted by the US, as you heard from Secretary Blinken, positioning OGP as their implementation mechanism. Let us engage wider civil society, such as for climate, women, LGBTQ, health, education, and mobilize people, especially youth, to demand open government to advance their causes. Let me close with a personal story. Like many of you, my father was a reformer in government and later in civil society. He fought against corruption in India's poorest state till literally the day he fell and he died. But he was a lonely warrior fighting alone. Look around you. OGP's strength is to connect such lonely warriors so we can multiply our collective strength. So at this summit, let us join forces in taking up the open government challenge and scaling up your ambitious reforms. Let us join forces in forging a stronger and broader movement for open government. Let us join forces in together delivering on our precious, precious promise, better governance for and with people. Thank you.